Hey, Beastista here, and welcome to our second match of the Little Cup draft for the VDL. So this match, we are fighting against the Tokyo Terror, and let's get into their team. So on the left is my team, so the same team as we in the previous video, and on the right is my opponent's team. So some very noteworthy things on my opponent's team is first, we can see on the top left of their side is Riolu. It is a Pokemon with Prankster and has coaching and copycat, so there's a couple ways to do some really good things. Coaching can make it hard for me to do physical damage while making them do a lot more damage. So it's something that's really worth concerning and makes me want to spring Purloin even more than I previously did in order to get Fake Out. Other than that, we can see on the top right, they have Munchlax, which is one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the entirety of Little Cup. In addition, it's also one of the slowest Pokemon, so if they're able to get up Trick Room, it'll be hard for me to deal with. So that's definitely something that's really concerning. Other than that, one thing that's really nice, if we look at my opponent's team, is that they have 3 Ice Pokemon and a Steel Pokemon and a normal Pokemon, which means that they have 5 Pokemon that are weak to fighting and 4 Pokemon that are weak to fire. And I happen to have 2 fire Pokemon and a fighting Pokemon. And so Ponyta, Darumaka, and Machop on my side all seem very good. So those are kind of the big ones. And then in addition, my opponent has a Hell package in the bottom right with Ninetale setting up the Hell and Sandshrew being able to double its speed in the Hell. And so Purloin possibly learning Sunny Day can be helpful, or Swablu having Cloud9, which can nullify the effects of weather, can be very useful on my team. So with that, let's go into what I decided to bring. So this is my team. So the first thing we see is Ponyta. So Ponyta is faster than every single Pokemon on my team with this speed spread, and I gave it pretty much max attack and an expert belt. I gave it Flare Blitz to hit all the fire weaks, Iron Tail to deal with their fairy Pokemon, and Solar Blade in order to deal with their water Pokemon. And I gave Will-O-Wisp when it's outside of Trick, or when it's not Dynamax, and when it's Dynamax, it can use it to have a max guard. Below that, I gave Wide Lens to my Purloin so that I have very accurate screeches. They're not 100% accurate, but they get to about 94% accurate with the Wide Lens. And then I gave it max bulk for the most part. I have a little bit of spare EVs to give it a little bit of attack, but I gave it Fake Out as its only offensive move, so hopefully that doesn't punish me. I gave it Sunny Day to counteract the Hell, and then Charm to lower my opponent's team, which has almost exclusively physical attackers. Next, I have Darumaka. Darumaka is about as bulky as Ponyta, but it has a lot higher attack, but also a lot lower speed. So Darumaka is definitely going to be better if I feel like I can get speed control, or if my opponent, I think, brings slower Pokemon. I gave it Fire Blitz, superpower to deal with probably something like Munchlax, because there's a good chance that it's going to be Thick Fat, which makes it have a fire resist, and then Zen Headbutt just as a way to damage Mudkip. And then finally, just Protect. We gave it max speed, which allows it to outspeed Sandshrew outside of the Hell. We have Swablu. This is the exact same Swablu as last time. Very bulky with an EV light. And we gave it Cloud9, which is very relevant this week because of their Hell package. Below this, we have Choice Scarf Machop. Machop should outspeed everything on my opponent's team that doesn't have a Choice Scarf. I have Coaching to increase the bulk and attack of my 2 main Dynamax threats. And then I gave it Fire Punch for some coverage against, and then Bullet Punch for some coverage. Overall, it's mainly just going to go there for coaching or close combat, but that's kind of the idea. And then finally, we gave Choice Band, Contrary Inkay. We gave it max HP, max special defense to make it pretty bulky. And then with Superpower, it can increase its defense and its attack. And so with one Superpower, I should be able to take most things. I should be able to take at least one hit pretty effectively. And so generally speaking, some of the big leads that I think of doing are likely going to be Swablu and Darumaka, or Purloin and Ponyta. Purloin and Ponyta can kind of should be able to one-shot almost anything, and also deal with Trick Room by Fake Out. And then Darumaka is really good if I can get Tailwind up, and so that combination is very good. Okay, so let's get into our matches. So let's get into our match. So looking at my opponent's side, the first thing that I note is that there is no Riolu, which is something I was very concerned about in the game. So looking at this, I think that the likely thing that they're going to lead is probably going to be Vulpix and Sandshrew, but there's a chance that they may do something like Spiritomb to set up Trick Room with maybe a threatening Pokemon. So with that, I debating between a couple, but I decide to go with Purloin Ponyta because I think that's best against the Sun matchup. And then I bring Machop and Inkay in the back. So my opponent leads Sandshrew and Pawniard. So with this, I immediately say I think the likely thing that they're going to do is switch into Vulpix on the left spot and then Dynamax and try to kill my Ponyta with Sandshrew. So I decide to, very quickly, Sunny Day and Max Flare into Sandshrew because if they switch in Vulpix, I can get the Sun up after it switches in and then kill Sandshrew immediately. So Ponyta Dynamaxes, and we see that they do not switch in the Vulpix. And they protect the Sandshrew, which is not great for me, but honestly I think I might be able to kill through the Protect in the Sunny Day, because it is 4 times super effective against it. And we see that they actually are a fire resist parry, so this probably doesn't kill even. And so we end up seeing that this does a lot of damage, and it is really close to killing it, even through Protect. They end up doing Rock Tomb into Ponyta, which lowers my Ponyta speed, which is really annoying. And so I'm a little bit concerned, but I think I'm in okay shape. So here I decide to charm the Sandshrew spot and just ignore that spot and then kill the Pawniard spot with Max Flare, because I should be able to take one more Rock Tomb. They switch out Sandshrew into the Mudkip, and I feel pretty good because I'm glad I can get a Charm into the Mudkip, which is definitely one of the Pokemon I'm scared about. And it should be a physical attacker. So they rocked him again, so now my Ponyta is at -2 speed, which means it gets outspeed by almost everything. And then we flare and kill the Pawniard, which is pretty good. So right now I'm feeling I'm in pretty good shape. So they bring out the Sandshrew. And so I decide to just charm, and I decide to switch out the Ponyta because I know that I'm going to be outsped by both the things in the field because I'm at -2 speed. And so it never feels great to switch out a Dynamax Pokemon, but I think it's best here. And they protect the Sandshrew, which is actually pretty good, even though I did charm into that spot. And so they scald into me, which one thing is noteworthy, that shows that it's special. And my Machop actually gets burned, which is actually really lucky because my Machop is actually Guts. And so this actually gives me an attack boost rather than an attack drop. So I decided to Screech and close combat into the Mudkip spot in case it Dynamaxes. That might be a little bit of a questionable decision because I probably kill it even if I don't. But I end up getting the Screech off and it hits, and so this likely kills a Dynamax Mudkip, and Mudkip outspeeds my Machop, which my Machop is Choice Scarf, so we now know Mudkip is 100% chance that it is Choice Scarf. And then it's a little bit sad. The triple axle kills my Machop. I think I probably could have taken that if I would have charmed into it, but I went for the guarantee kill on Mudkip. So now we bring in Ponyta, and Ponyta is fast, should be faster than my opponent's team out when the hell is not up. But we see that Vulpix is going to come in and set up the hell. So in order to outspeed Sandshrew, I decided to set up the Sun. And Flare Blitz, I think, is a pretty good chance to be able to one-shot Vulpix from this in the Sun. So I decided to go into the Vulpix. And especially because I feel like in the back, I should be able to deal with anything if I can, get the speed advantage. They Dynamax Vulpix, which is unsurprising, even though it's not normally the best Dynamax threat. So they protect Sandshrew, which is actively very good for me because I was not targeted into that spot. So we Flare Blitz, and it brings Vulpix down to its Focus Sash. So we now know Vulpix has Focus Sash for the next game. And I die from Recoil. But Ponyta, now I'm in a very good chance to be able to kill both of them with my Pokemon in the back. Purloin takes that okay, but it's okay. It's not doing much work now because it has no damaging moves. So we bring in Inkay, and I feel okay about my chances for Inkay to survive these hits. I'm debating between Sunny Day, because if Sunny Day makes me outspeed Sandshrew, it's worth it, but I don't think it outspeeds, so my decision is to just charm the Sandshrew to make it do less damage, and I'm debating between Superpower and Rock Slide. I decide that Rock Slide should get the double hit KO if I connect, and so I decide to just hit with the Rock Slide. So we charm the Sandshrew, so it's not going to do nearly as much damage. So the triple axle, and they only get 2 hits here, which is pretty lucky for me, because now I should actually survive this max Hellstorm. Otherwise, it was very close to a roll. And my Inkay dies, which is a little bit sad, and the reason it dies is because of crit here. My Inkay was at max special defense, and we know that Vulpix doesn't have an offensive item. So now here, I'm completely dead. I have no damage to move, so I just decide to not reveal any more information, even though they know 3 of my 4 moves, and I'm just going to charm again. And then, for some reason, I lose internet connection. I didn't rage quit or anything. I just lost internet connection. So a little bit strange, but hopefully that wasn't as. I'm concerned that maybe my internet's going bad and we can't finish up the match, but it ends up being fine. Now time for game 2. So after that game, I feel like Ponyta did okay, but I definitely feel that I would rather lead the Swablu Dynamaxing lead now. Because I didn't feel like Ponyta was super great there. And so I decided that Purloin is very good in the back, and because they do have a lot of physical attackers, and it can help me finish up some kills, I decided to do Inkay as my 4th. So my opponent leads Spiritsy and Poniard. So immediately my thought is, okay, they're setting up Trick Room, so I'm a little bit concerned with that. So I'm debating whether or not I can Tailwind turn 1, because I'm not sure if my Dynamaxing can one-shot the Spiritsy. There's a pretty good chance I can one-shot Spiritsy, even if it's Eevee-Light, but if it's Eevee-Light max HP, max defense, it's not a 100% chance to kill. So I decide to go with the Heat Wave instead of the Tailwind. So I Dynamax Dynamaxing, And they Sucker Punch my Darumaka, which does quite a bit of damage, but is not a 2-hit KO, which is really nice. And so we end up actually one-shotting Spirit Sea, so it definitely would have been better if I was able to get up the Tailwind, but this Heat Wave is going to do pretty good damage into the Ponder. And it is a kill next time I do it. So they bring in Mudkip, and here I should immediately remember that it has Choice Scarf from game 1. And so I'm going to set up Tailwind because that's the correct thing to do, but I should 100% max guard because Mudkip is Choice Scarf. In my mind, I'm like, oh, Mudkip is slower than Darumaka, so I should be able to just kill it. Which is obviously a reasonable idea if we didn't know it was a Choice Scarf, which we know from last game. And so I'm going to do a dumb move and say, oh, I can just kill Mudkip. But, yeah. And so they hit me with Sucker Punch, and then they hit me with the Scald because they're faster than me because they're Choice Scarf. And this is a huge misplay. If I would have protected here, I would have been an amazing scrape. Now I'm not in great shape. So I decided to bring out Inkay because Purloin does not do much damage into my opponent's team. And so I decided that I'm just going to Heat Wave, hope to kill Poniard there, and Superpower, hope to, damage Mudkip greatly. Sucker Punch does a lot more to Inkay than I would have hoped it would do. And we get the Superpower off, which does quite a bit of damage in Mudkip, but not quite enough as I would like, because I don't think this Heat Wave is going to kill it. And it does not. And so we lose Inkay here with the Scald, but I'm feeling okay because I believe their last Pokemon is going to be Munchlax because they did lead their Trick Room Pokemon. And Purloin can lower its attack a bunch. And so the hope is that I can lower its attack enough in which Swablu can stall out this game and possibly make it to time because I can heal my Swablu up over and over again with Roost. So I decided to Hyper Beam or Hyper Voice to kill the Mudkip and then just Charm the Munchlax to lower its attack. So the Dynamax Munchlax, which is pretty much expected, and then we Charm it, so now it's at -2 attack. And then we get the Hyper Voice off, which ends up killing the Mudkip and does very little damage to Dynamax Munchlax, which is not surprising since it has very good special defense and is huge amounts of HP. So Max Lightning does honestly more than I would like. It does about 50% to me, even at -2 attack. So there's a chance it might have killed me if I didn't Charm. But I still feel like I'm in okay. So we see that their item is Leftovers, which means that we're probably should be fine as to survive this Dynamax threat. So we do Roost, so it's going to make it back to max HP, and then we Charm again to lower its attack 2 more stages. So not only does this get me back up to 100% HP, this also grounds me, which means that I don't take super effective damage from lightning, or from electric moves, I mean. And so now we can see that that as long as I don't get crit, Swablu should be able to easily stall out this game, because that was a max lightning, and its attack is just going to get lower and lower because we're going to do Charm again. And so now Munchlax is at -6 attack. And we get back up to max HP. And so this speed drop doesn't really matter if I was to guess because Munchlax is so slow. And so now it's small again, and it's at -6 attack, so I'm pretty sure that I can win this just by Hyper Voicing and then making sure to heal my health whenever I take damage. I decided to charm again just because I literally have nothing else that's useful. Now here we see that Hyper Wave does good enough damage in which it's actually doing more than Leftovers recovery, so I should be able to eventually kill them. So I just keep on Hyper Voicing, and then I decide to Screech, which is going to lower defense, which actually doesn't do anything because my Swablu is a special attacker. And so, as you, I'm going pretty fast here, but Purloin literally it cannot do anything to my Munchlax. It's just useless right now. It's just kind of there. But on the bright side, they are targeting Purloin. So this is going to go on for a while. So if you want to skip to the next game, there's a timestamp in the comments below. But pretty much I'm just going to Hyper Voice and click irrelevant moves with Purloin. I definitely feel like I have a chance that I could have lost this one specifically because my Purloin does not have an attacking move. So there's a chance that I should have given it a damaging move other than Fake Out. But I've also used all three of the non-Fake Out moves so far in the first two games. And so it's kind of hard to say if it's optimal or not. And so we finally get there. So we got a crit. That didn't really matter too much. We'd have just been able to kill him next turn instead of this turn. But we got there. That was a really long, stalled out game, but we were able to get there because Purloin was able to get to -6 attack. So here we are for game 3. So I think that Darumaka Swablu was a great lead. I feel pretty confident about that. And Purloin, I think, did a lot of work, even though it didn't do any damage because it did completely wall Munchlax almost single-handedly. And so in the back, I'm debating whether or not Machop or Inkay is going to be better. Machop is faster, but using close combat as a fighting move lowers its attack or its defense and special defense, where Inkay increases its defense. And so it's a little bit tricky if I want, basically bulkier or faster. And so I end up deciding that I want Inkay over Machop. So they bring Sandshrew, Mudkip. And so I'm pretty happy with this lead. I feel very good about this lead, actually. So I decide that the best thing to do is just going to be Protect and set up the Tailwind, because I feel pretty confident that they're either going to Protect Sandshrew or and attack into Darumaka or double attack into Darumaka. So they end up protecting Sandshrew, which is more or less expected. And then they Scald into the Darumaka, which was also pretty expected. So this went very well. I got a Tailwind for free. So here I feel pretty good. I'm debating what attack I want to do. I'm definitely going to target the Mudkip spot, but the question is do I want to max Psychic, max Fighting, or max Flare? I think max Psychic does the most damage, but max Fighting has a good chance to kill it if it does a Dynamax, and it gives me the attack boost. So I decide that I should just be safe and go with the most damage and click the max Psychic. And then I decide to go with the Heat Wave because it's going to do a lot of damage into Sandshrew. So they end up switching out into Vulpix, which is fine. Like, the Hell doesn't do anything, and it's not like it's going to do anything more than Sandshrew would do in this situation. So we Dynamax our Darumaka, and this should definitely kill Mudkip. And then we see that they actually Dynamax their Mudkip. I think this was actually a brilliant idea. I think it's a good idea. Typically when you have a Choice Scarf, your people are normally hesitant to Dynamax it. And I wasn't particularly expecting it right now, but if they didn't Dynamax, I feel like I am in commanding position, but with this Dynamax, I feel like they're in very good shape. So I do a lot of damage, but definitely not enough to kill it. I debating whether, so this Max Geyser, I didn't actually do this calculations. I know if this was physical, there is a chance that I survive this. And if with a burn, if it was physical, I 100% would survive this. But I don't know the damage calculation at all. And it ends up getting the KO, which is really sad. And even though I don't feel great about this position, I feel like I'm not in horrible shape even though I lost a Dynamaxing. So I bring in Inkay, and so Inkay I feel like is in reasonable shape. So the idea is that I'm going to Superpower into the Vulpix slot, and this should hopefully kill Vulpix, and then Hyper Voice should be single target onto Mudkip, and hopefully kill Mudkip. And if not, I'm still in okay shape, but not as good as I could be. So they end up max guarding Mudkip, which honestly I considered optimal for me. Like I said, there's a chance that Hyper Voice single target would kill there, but it's definitely uncertain. And so here we see that we get the attack and defense boost on the Inkay, and now if we're able to kill Mudkip, Inkay is going to be really hard for my opponent to kill. And so I decided to just target the Mudkip spot because Heat Wave is going to do a lot of damage to the Sandshrew, even though it has an Aqua Berry. And even though the rain is currently happening, Cloud 9 means that fire damage is not reduced. So we get the Superpower and kill the Mudkip and get the second defense boost and the second attack boost, and now Inkay is really hard to kill and doing a lot of damage. So the Heat Wave goes off, but it has an Aqua Berry, but that still does 60-ish%. And so it definitely is going to kill the second one. Their Ice, they missed their attack, but even though it's relevant, I don't think it's that big of a deal because I definitely think Swablu would take that attack. And Inkays are in a commanding position right now. And so here, I just go for the Pawniard because I think Swablu can kill Sandshrew pretty easily, and I just set up the Tailwind to make sure I outspeed. So they protect Sandshrew, which is very good for me again because I'm targeting the Pawniard, and with that and the Pawniard not killing there, I feel like the game is pretty much over. So we get another Superpower off, and this should definitely kill Pawniard. And now I have +3 defense, +3 attack Pokemon that also is in Tailwind, and so this game's pretty much over. So this match was very close. My opponent made some really good team decisions and pretty good gameplay that I think made this match, which is on paper very much in my favor, a very close match, in which a decision here or there might have changed the game. But I'm very happy I got my second win of the league, and I hope anyone who watched this enjoyed. Thank you.